Hi everyone, again I'm back answering some questions from the Autism Life for Autistic People group from an academic autistic perspective, and today I'm going to cover another topic from one of the commenters, which was about unintentionally causing offence. Before I get into that, I just want to talk about this idea of causing offence. Okay, it takes two people, the person communicating and the person receiving the communication. It takes two people to become offended, and it's the receiver who becomes offended, right? It's therefore both people involved in that process of somebody becoming offended. And I think that my personal opinion and experience has been that if you tell somebody that you're autistic up front and you tell them autism means social impairment, they're a lot more likely to be forgiving. I think the people that have known that I'm autistic and that I've had to work with have always been a lot kinder to me, and I act exactly the same way with them that I act with anybody else, and they have been a lot more understanding when I mess up. Or when I say something and I don't realize how it sounds. You can often see the reaction from other people, and they're like, oh, there was something wrong with what this person just said to me and I don't like it. And you can see the reaction, and they can become withdrawn or whatever. And you can sometimes see when they're becoming offended. And that happens way less when somebody knows that you're autistic, which just goes to show that it is a two-part thing, but most of the effort is on the receiver, right? You know, there's a certain amount of, if I was communicating one message and you heard another one, okay, miscommunication is responsibility of both parties or all parties, however many is involved, but the receiver does have an active role in offence. So let's not go claiming that all of the fault is on the autistic person when somebody finds what they're saying or doing offensive. That being said, let's go into the social side of things and talk about why it is that it might be more likely for an autistic person to receive an offended reaction from somebody. So the short version is, in fact, let's take an example. I've been reading this one particular researcher called Erving Goffman, and he was talking about how when you are around other people, you might have a persona that you use when you're around them, or you might want them to like you, so you act a certain way, or you might want them to approve of what you're saying, so you might act in a certain way. You know, you might try to make more eye contact or whatever it is. And Goffman was basically saying that it's kind of like a presentation, in that you choose your words, you choose what you're going to present, you can have a lot of control over the message that you put across while presenting. But what you don't have a whole lot of control over, in his opinion, is the non-verbal side of things. So that is anything that is not the words. So that can include intonation, that can include rhythm, that can include eye contact, that can include facial expressions, whether those are micro expressions being the really short ones that just flicker across your face as you react to something before you remember to control your face and poker face or whatever it is that you're doing in the moment. And it can include things like posture, how far away you're stood from somebody or sitting or whatever, the tension in your body, all of those things. So Goffman argues you can control the spoken message. You cannot control anything non-verbal. Whereas what the listener, what the audience of your presentation sees is all of that. They see the intended message. They also see all of the non-verbal communication. So there's always going to be an imbalance between the presenter and the audience. There's always going to be the audience seeing way more than you want them to, and then the presenter who's only got control over this much compared to the full picture. So again, offence is on both parties. Now, he argues that the way that things like that happen is when there is a mismatch between the intended communication, the words, and the non-verbal. So if you say, yes, I feel very happy today, you know, I had a blank face, I had an intense level of eye contact, you know, I was very, very still. These are not behaviors, these are not non-verbal behaviors that we see in someone who's happy. Somebody who is genuinely happy would probably be smiling, or at least they would look relaxed, right? So there we see an example of a verbal message and a non-verbal communication that don't match. So when you've got an autistic person in the mix, now autistic people have different social behavior, not impaired, not bad, different. I'm a big supporter of the neurodiversity movement. There is impairment. Impairment does exist. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I really do believe that autistic people just have different behavior, different patterns of nonverbal behavior. And so for us, the nonverbal language that neurotypicals use doesn't come naturally. It's like a second language that we have to learn. And so it is a lot easier when you're speaking a second language to miscommunicate. It's a lot easier when you're speaking a second language to accidentally use like slang or something that just doesn't work. And so when it comes to saying something accidentally offensive, normally that's just going to be because there was a mismatch between your verbal communication and some non-verbal element, whether that is something you did with your body or your face or your voice, or it could be that you didn't realize the subtext of what you were saying, which is also in my book non-verbal, or at least it's part of the stuff that we don't have as much control over. So you might have accidentally used some slang that has a second meaning that could be interpreted negatively, or within the context, the wider context of the conversation, you might have accidentally like said something that reminded the listener of something that had already been said that was negative, or something like that. You know, it wasn't taken on face value. You know, the person getting offended didn't take what you said on face value. They did not take it with good faith. And so for them, their instinctive snap judgment was this person's message and their intention don't match. I'm trusting the intention, not the message. Therefore, I believe that they did something offensive to me, or they said something offensive to me, or they intended offense. And that is the thing with neurotypical people. I think that's probably the thing with everybody, but especially with neurotypical people, is that they are looking for the intent, not the face value words. The exception to this is when they know that there is a social impairment involved. If they know that you are socially impaired, then they know to widen their available interpretations of whatever you just said. They know that, okay, the negative thing that it sounds like you said is one potential interpretation, but the second interpretation is they meant exactly what they said and they didn't intend for the other social behaviors to come across the way that they did. In which case, because they know you're autistic, they're going to opt for the one that seems more consistent with what they know about you, which is that you have a social impairment, and so they maybe don't need to trust with as much like faith that the non-verbal stuff is more accurate than the verbal stuff. I think that's basically it. So the short version, to summarize, is that the reason that accidental offense gets caused is all about the person becoming offended did not take what you said in good faith, meaning they didn't inherently trust you. They trusted what they thought was the intent of your message, and they chose the interpretation that matched what they thought your intent was, based on your body language, based on your tone of voice, based on your facial expression. So because they didn't inherently trust you, and because they trusted what they thought was the intent over the words, that's how they became offended. The only way that I can see right now of fixing that Well, there's two, I guess. The only two ways that I can see of making sure that somebody else doesn't get offended. Number one, get really, really good at masking and become fluent in neurotypical nonverbal communication and never, ever, ever, ever make any mistakes. Or number two, tell the people who are getting offended if it's safe to do so. Other than that, you don't have any control, so focus on what you can control. I personally would not say that masking is the best option because you're going to make mistakes. You're not always going to have the maximum amount of energy available to you to try to control all of that. And Irving Goffman's theory that not even neurotypicals can control all the nonverbal stuff just goes to show that if neurotypicals can't, then why should we? How could we control all of the nonverbal communication? I mean, I'm still learning about Goffman. I don't know if his theories have been proven yet, but I don't think we should have to try to mask like that. So I think the best answer would be tell them you've got a social impairment, and then when they get offended, just say, "Remember, I'm socially impaired. I'm autistic." Trust me at face value. If ever you're thinking that I could have said something upsetting, trust my words at face value, because that's what I meant. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. That was twice as long as I meant to spend on this. I hope that helps. Thank you. Bye. Oh, before I go, I just want to say thank you to everybody who commented and gave me some prompts to practice with. This has been really helpful, this particular video as well, because I actually got to use some of the theory that I've been studying. And so I found it really, really beneficial to practice talking about it. Now I just would like to know if it made sense to you. So if you could comment and tell me if it made sense and what you thought of the video, that would be really, really helpful. I'm crafting my presentation. I'm going to be scripting it and working on the slides this week, and I have to hand it in on Friday, but I'm working Friday, so that has to be Thursday. So I've got the next couple of days to really nail it all down. So if you want to help by making some comments on this video, that would be really appreciated. Thank you very much. Bye.